Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity here to speak from the Kiwanis Club. I think service clubs like this are great. There's a lot of needs that we have in our communities, and those needs can only be met by the people in the community. There's a lot of things that the government has to get involved with, but I think more and more the government tries to get involved with lots of things that really communities and groups like this do a lot better job actually making it happen. There's a lot more, people can see what the needs are, there's a lot less bureaucracy, and a lot more heart into it. So I really applaud you. Three River City, our goal is to really help people in need. And I remember before we started the church, I remember I was just praying, and I was just saying, okay, God, how are we going to help single moms? How are we going to help alcoholics? How are we going to help them? Because like in the church, a lot of times the church doesn't know how to handle those kind of people. And so out of that, River City was born. And I remember in October of 2006, I was with Don Wells, and we were looking, we said, hey, it's getting cold out, and there's no place for people who are sleeping on the street, because we were aware of some people that were sleeping in places that they shouldn't be sleeping outside, in tunnels, and under overpasses. So we thought that maybe we should open up our shelter, open up our church to be a shelter for them. So I said to him, I said, well, if we can get 50 volunteers to do that, then we can open. So within 3 weeks, Don had amassed 50 volunteers, and we put a sign on the door called Harbor Inn Shelter. And that was all great until the next day we got a letter in the mail from the city saying that you started a shelter, you can't do that, close it or else. We were kind of puzzled. We were thinking, what's wrong? What are we doing wrong? So kind of a week went by, and it was our deadline date, because they give us a week. And then the mayor gave me a call and said, can we meet? So I said, sure. So I went down and I spoke with the mayor, I spoke with the city manager, their solicitor, and a bunch of people around there, and they're going, what the heck are you doing? And I said, all we're doing is we're just trying to provide a bed for people who need a bed. And they said, well, that place isn't safe for them. I said, well, we used to have a daycare there. They used to have little kids. I figured it was safe enough for the little kids at one time. It should be safe enough for homeless people. And they started scratching their head. They go, well, it's a crisis care facility. I said, we're not trying to be a crisis care facility. All we're trying to do is provide a bed. I said, churches, I believe, have the mandate to help the poor. If somebody needs a place to sleep, we should be able to give them a place to sleep. So out of that, they said, well, we really need to kind of have this done right. So would you mind, please, applying for a zoning change? And we said, sure, but I don't have the $1,800 that you want. So I said, if we get the $1,800, we'll apply for zoning. So the press was out there, and I was surprised because as soon as we got to the meeting, there was 3 or 4 press people, and somebody had somehow got caught that we had this meeting. And they put it in the paper, and the next day a lawyer in town gave us a check for $1,800. So I thought, well, I guess that's our sign to apply for zoning. So we applied for zoning. And I think we were just pretty naive, thinking that it was just more of a formality. But then there was a lot of people that were quite afraid of what was going to go on. So we had a neighborhood meeting, and in that neighborhood meeting, we had 40 or 50 people that showed up in our auditorium. And we just tried to assure them, hey, we're just trying to provide a bed. So eventually we got granted temporary zoning, which was never my intent. My intent was to get permanent. But there was a lot of people that said, well, why don't we just give them temporary until we get a real shelter? And that was sort of the underlying current that went on. And then that happened again where there was no shelter built, and then our 2 years was up, so we went for another extension, and we said, well, let's do permanent. We proved that we could do this after 2 years. So then they granted us another temporary. And then the end of the Good Shepherd started the Shepherd's Lodge, and they had just started in September, and our thing was up in October. So then we went back and said we would go on permanent, because we still feel there's a need. And so they felt like they would say, well, let's give them 1 more year temporary to see if there's still a need. If not, then we don't necessarily have to do it. That was their intention. Our intention always was to go permanent. So this last time, we just had a city council meeting in October, and it was turned down that we could get permanent zoning, and they did not switch it to temporary instead. I really feel that we are needed for a number of reasons. First of all, we're a church and we want to be able to help people. And so, for example, we have, like I was just at the courthouse before I came here because there's a man that needs to, who is in jail that shouldn't be in jail. He had a little domestic dispute with the girl he's living with. He has no place to stay, so he gets thrown in jail. The only way they'll give him a place, they'll let him out on bail, is if he has an address. He has no address. He has no friends he can stay with. So what we'll typically do is, if we feel that this person is a person worthy of granting bail, then we'll go to them and say, yes, Judge, we will be the surety, and they can stay at River City. And that seems to work well. If we didn't have River City, we would not be able to do that. And that's just one example of the things that we like to do that we feel we need to do. There's also other people that we've helped in the past that get housing and then they lose housing and then they come with us for a few months and we help them get housing again. A lot of times that could be because maybe they get thrown in jail. A lot of times people get thrown in jail because they have mental illness and they just are a little off and the police don't know what to do with them. You know, we have a great city, but there are a lot of people out there that the police don't really know what to do with because they are just a little bit off their meds and they may be acting a little crazy. I know of a man who had some toy guns and he was just toting them around in the Bayside Mall. You can't do that. You and I know you can't do that, but he did that, and he gets lands in jail, and he gets barred from there, he gets barred from here, and they need advocates. So one of the things we really see is that people need advocacy, and a lot of these people that are falling through the cracks really need help. I know I took that same man that was that had been in court, and he had a drinking problem, and he hadn't been drinking, but he had to go to Westover, which is a treatment center. And so with Westover, nothing was happening. So finally, I went with him to start going with the appointment. So I went with him to the addiction and counseling unit, and they said, well, you're supposed to go and see your doctor. Well, he did see his doctor. His doctor was supposed to fill out a form. But as soon as I got involved, all of a sudden they take these people seriously, and all of a sudden everything starts moving, and then within a few weeks, everything's happening. Because a lot of times these people aren't treated with respect. The people we help, I don't find are dangerous. I think in the 5 years, I think maybe there's 2 people that could say, you know what, those 2 people are dangerous. One of them was actually featured in the paper, and he was actually run out of town. They said this guy's a dangerous guy, and he actually left town because of that article in the paper. And another guy is just a guy that if he hasn't got stable housing, and if he isn't stable, he'll just do a lot of break and enters. So that guy that I would say was a little bit dangerous, we ended up getting him housing. He was in housing for a year, and it worked great. He stayed out of jail. Because he came to us from being in penitentiary for 10 years. So I think a lot of people, if people believe in them and they really feel like people want them and there's help and they have some hope, they really thrive a whole lot better. And so I believe that that's one of the reasons why we need to have our shelter, is because we need to be able to help the people we feel that we can help and that are directed to our way. We've been there 5 years and we have not had any incident at all of any kind of major capacity that everybody was suspecting. I remember after we got our first temporary, one of the neighbors said, oh yeah, we're just all waiting for the first thing to happen. When as soon as it does, they'll just shut you down. Well, that never happened after 5 years. And I don't believe it's going to happen. And anything can happen anyway in any part of the city.